The clock on the wall ticked incessantly, each second echoing in the silence of the living room. The dim light from the lamp cast long shadows, and I sank deeper into the worn cushions of the couch, wrapping my arms around my knees. It was just past 2 in the morning, and the familiar weight of my dissatisfaction pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. Tom was asleep upstairs, oblivious to my restless thoughts. Our marriage had become a series of predictable routines: dinner at 6, TV until we fell asleep, weekends spent in silence. I felt like a ghost in my own life, drifting through days that blurred into one another. I thought about Sarah, my daughter. She was engaged now, excited about her future with Jake, her charming fiancé. I remembered the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke about him, how she lit up with every little detail of their plans. But as I sat there, I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something was missing, not just in my marriage, but in my very being. I sighed, staring out the window into the dark night, the moonlight casting a silver glow on the empty street. Suddenly, the shrill ring of the phone shattered the stillness, making me jump. I glanced at the screen, my heart racing as I saw Jake's name flash across it. Why was he calling me at this hour? I hesitated, my finger hovering over the green button, a mix of curiosity and caution swirling inside me. Against my better judgment, I answered, "Hello?" My voice was barely above a whisper, as if I was afraid of waking the world around me. "Nancy." His voice was low and hesitant, sending a shiver down my spine. "I'm sorry for calling so late. I didn't know who else to talk to." "Jake? Is everything okay?" I sat up straighter, suddenly alert. The way he said my name sent a thrill through me, one I quickly tried to suppress. "I don't know. I just feel so isolated right now," he admitted, his vulnerability evident. "I thought maybe you could help me sort through my thoughts." "Of course," I replied, surprised at how easily the words slipped from my lips. "What's on your mind?" There was a pause, and I could almost hear the wheels turning in his head. "It's just everything with Sarah. I love her, but sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in expectations. I don't want to let her down, but I can't help feeling trapped." My heart raced at his confession. A part of me wanted to scream at him for feeling this way, for sharing these intimate thoughts with me. But another part felt an unsettling connection. "Jake, she adores you. You two are perfect together." "Maybe," he replied, his voice tinged with sadness. "But sometimes I think I'm just playing a part in a play that doesn't feel real. I don't know who I am anymore." I felt a rush of emotions, sympathy, concern, and something else I couldn't quite name. "I understand, really. It's hard to feel lost, but you have to talk to her about how you feel." "I know," he said, his tone softening. "But it's easier to talk to you. You listen without judgment." I swallowed hard, warmth pooling in my stomach at the intimacy of the moment. "I'm here for you, Jake. Just remember that whatever you decide, you're not alone." "Thanks, Nancy, it means a lot." His voice was low, almost a whisper, and I could feel the distance between us shrinking even through the phone. As we spoke, my mind raced with conflicting thoughts. I felt guilty for being there for him, for being the person he turned to in his time of need. But, amidst the guilt, there was an undeniable thrill, a spark of something forbidden. I tried to shake it off, reminding myself of my loyalty to Sarah, but his words lingered in the air, intoxicating and dangerous. "I should let you go," he finally said, breaking the spell. "But maybe, can we talk again? Soon?" "Sure," I replied, my heart pounding. "Whenever you need. Good night, Nancy." "Good night, Jake." As I hung up the phone, I felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. I had just crossed a line I never thought I would approach. The darkness of the night deepened, and I sat there, heart racing, wondering what I had just set in motion. A wave of guilt washed over me as I clutched the phone tightly, the weight of Jake's confession lingering in the air long after we hung up. I could almost hear the echoes of our conversations swirling in my mind, a chaotic mix of longing and regret. What am I doing? I whispered to myself, staring vacantly at the wall. My heart raced, a frantic drumbeat that reminded me of my daughter Sarah, her bright smile and innocent laughter, oblivious to the turmoil unfolding just a heartbeat away. It was a delicate balance I was teetering on, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt myself slipping. Jake was not just some random man. He was my daughter's fiancé. How did I let it get this far? I breathed, the realization crashing down like a wave. Yet, there was something intoxicating about the way Jake spoke to me, the way he made me feel seen in a world where I had become invisible. "Mom, are you there?" Jake's voice had been a lifeline in my isolation. I could hear the vulnerability in his tone, the ache for connection that mirrored my own. I don't know who else to reach out to. "Jake, you shouldn't be calling me," I had said, my voice trembling. "What if Sarah finds out?" "Please, I need someone to talk to. I feel so alone." His words hung heavy in the air, a delicate thread that pulled me closer to him, despite the danger it posed. Days turned into nights filled with whispered confessions and shared dreams. Our late-night chats became my guilty pleasure, a forbidden escape from my mundane life. "I never thought I'd feel this way about you," Jake had admitted one night, his words igniting a fire within me. "You make me feel alive, Nancy." "Jake, we can't," I protested, but my voice lacked conviction. Each time we spoke, the lines of our relationship blurred, and I found myself drawn into the dizzying whirlwind of his charm. It was as if we were dancing on the edge of a precipice, and each word exchanged was a step closer to falling. "Just think about it," he urged softly, his tone almost pleading. "I'm not happy with Sarah. I don't know how to tell her." "Then why are you with her?" I asked, my heart pounding as a mix of anger and desire surged through me. "You can't just drag me into this." "But you're already in it," he countered, his voice low, like a secret shared under the cover of darkness. "You have no idea how much I want to be with you." As I hung up that night, my heart raced with conflicting emotions. I was electrified by our connection, yet the guilt clung to me like a shadow. I sank back onto the couch, my mind spinning. What am I becoming? I thought, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was betraying my daughter. How could I do this to her? I whispered into the silence, as if seeking an answer from the empty room. But deep down, a part of me craved more. More of the thrill, more of the attention, more of the connection I had lost in my stagnant marriage. I paced the room, my thoughts racing. I need to put an end to this, I finally resolved. But even as I said it, I felt the tug of something deeper. The thought of Jake and his charming laughter flooded my mind, and I found myself yearning for more late-night conversations, more stolen moments. With a heavy heart, I finally succumbed to the pull of my desires, knowing that I was on a path from which there might be no return. My loyalty to Sarah hung in the balance, and the stakes were rising higher with each passing moment. Would I be able to pull myself back from this edge, or was I already too far gone? The uncertainty gnawed at me, but the thrill of the unknown was intoxicating, and I found it hard to resist. As I sat in my car, the neon lights of the diner flickering in the night, my heart raced with a mix of excitement and dread. The thought of meeting Jake felt both intoxicating and terrifying. What was I doing? I kept asking myself as I stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed so foreign, so lost in this whirlwind of emotions. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever was about to unfold. Upon entering the diner, the familiar scent of coffee and pancakes enveloped me. I spotted Jake at a corner booth, his expression a blend of nervousness and anticipation. His hair was slightly tousled, and he looked younger than his 25 years. As I approached, our eyes locked, and I felt a jolt of electricity coursing through me. "Hey," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. "Sorry to keep you waiting." "No worries," he replied, a lopsided grin breaking across his face. "I was just thinking about, how crazy this all is." I chuckled nervously, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. "Crazy doesn't even begin to cover it," I murmured, stealing a glance at the other patrons. I felt exposed, as if the very walls of the diner were closing in on our secret. Jake leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "I can't stop thinking about you, Nancy. It feels wrong, but—" He hesitated, searching my eyes for understanding. "I just feel so trapped with Sarah." His words sent a shiver down my spine. "What do you mean, trapped?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's like I'm suffocating," Jake confessed, his brow furrowed in distress. "I care about her, but it's not the same as what I feel when I'm with you. With you, I feel alive." The intensity of his gaze held me captive, and I felt my resolve beginning to falter. "Jake, this isn't just about us. What about Sarah?" I said, my heart pounding as I grappled with the weight of his confession. He sighed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. I know. But you have to understand. She doesn't really know me. She sees what she wants to see. I feel like I'm playing a role, and it's exhausting." The honesty in his voice stirred something deep within me. I was no stranger to feeling lost in my own life, and the thought of being with someone who understood that struggle was alluring. "Jake, this is dangerous territory we're treading on," I warned, though my own heart yearned for more. "Maybe it is," he admitted, his eyes darkening with desire. "But I can't help what I feel. I want to be with you, Nancy. Just you." A silence enveloped us, thick with unspoken words. I could see the longing in his eyes, and it mirrored my own hidden desires. "What are we doing?" I asked, my voice shaking as I wrestled with the reality of our situation. "I don't know," he replied softly. "But I do know that every moment we spend apart feels like torture. I just want to feel something real again." I looked down, my heart heavy with guilt. The thought of my daughter, Sarah, and the trust she had placed in both of us was suffocating. But as I looked back up at Jake, his gaze was unwavering, and I felt an undeniable pull towards him. "Let's not think about it right now," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Just enjoy this moment." He smiled, a hint of relief washing over his features. We spent the next few minutes lost in conversation, sharing dreams and laughter, as if the world outside the diner had faded away. But as we finished our coffee and the waitress cleared our table, reality came crashing back. Jake stood up, his expression shifting to one of uncertainty. "I should go," he said, glancing out the window. "But can I kiss you?" My breath hitched at the question. "Jake, we can't—" "I know," he interrupted gently, stepping closer to me. "But I need to know what this feels like." Before I could respond, he leaned in, his lips brushing against mine, igniting a fire I hadn't felt in years. The kiss was soft yet electric, a moment of clarity amidst the chaos. I melted into him, and for a fleeting second, all my doubts faded away. As we pulled away, I felt breathless, both exhilarated and terrified. Jake's eyes searched mine, filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, I admitted, my heart racing as I watched him turn to leave. But I can't stop thinking about you either. As he walked away, I felt a heavy weight settle on my chest. I was caught in a storm of emotions, knowing that I had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. My heart raced as I watched him drive away, leaving me alone with the consequences of our actions. As I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, the weight of my choices pressed heavily on my chest. The image reflecting back at me was one I barely recognized, a woman caught in a whirlwind of desire and shame. I could still feel the warmth of Jake's lips on mine, the thrill of our secret meetings igniting a fire in my veins that I hadn't felt in years. But guilt gnawed at me, a relentless reminder of the life I was betraying. The phone buzzed on the counter, snapping me from my reverie. It was a text from Sarah. Hey, Mom, where are you? Just checking in. My heart raced, and I felt the cold grip of panic. I quickly looked out the window, half expecting to see her standing there, peering in, demanding answers. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Just out for a walk, I typed back, my fingers trembling as I pressed send. I could feel the walls closing in around me, the weight of my lies suffocating. My mind drifted back to our last meeting at the hotel. I had walked in, heart pounding, knowing that I was crossing a line I could never uncross. The room had been dimly lit, and Jake was already there, looking impossibly handsome, leaning against the bed with that charming smile that made my heart skip. Nancy, he had said, his voice low and inviting. I've been thinking about you all day. Those words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, erasing the chill of doubt that lingered in my mind. We had talked for hours, sharing our fears and dreams, but as the night wore on, the tension between us became electric. Are you sure this is what you want? I had asked, my voice barely above a whisper, afraid of the answer. He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear, and in that moment the world outside ceased to exist. I want you, Nancy. Just you. And then, as if the universe had conspired in our favor, he kissed me again, and all my doubts melted away beneath the heat of his touch. But now, as I stood in my bathroom, my heart heavy with the knowledge of Sarah's innocence, I felt the thrill of that moment slip away, replaced by a cold dread. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting in the air, that Sarah had sensed the tension between us. Her recent behavior had been different. She seemed more observant, her smiles a little too knowing, her laughter tinged with a hint of suspicion. Later that evening, as I prepared dinner, the tension in the house was palpable. I could hear Sarah's footsteps in the hallway, and each sound made my heart race. What would I say if she confronted me? Would I be able to lie convincingly, or would the truth spill out like a broken dam? Mom, can you help me with something? Sarah's voice called from the living room, pulling me from my thoughts. Sure, sweetheart. What do you need? I replied, forcing a smile onto my lips, hoping it didn't look as strained as I felt. As I walked into the room, I found her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, her expression curious, almost too casual. I was thinking about our plans for the weekend. Jake and I want to take a trip to the lake. What do you think? The air thickened around me, and I struggled to keep my composure. That sounds great, honey. Just the two of you? Yeah, just us. But I was also thinking, maybe you could come too? You know, to keep things balanced, she said, a playful smile dancing on her lips. I'll think about it, I stammered, feeling the walls of my secret closing around me, squeezing tighter with each passing moment. Okay, but if you don't want to, that's fine. Just thought it might be nice. Her light-hearted tone did little to ease the knot forming in my stomach. As I watched her, a wave of guilt washed over me. How could I betray this sweet girl who trusted me fully? I wanted to tell her everything, to confess my feelings for her fiancé. But the fear of losing her was paralyzing. I couldn't let her know. The thought of hurting her was unbearable. Just as I was about to respond, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from Jake. "Can we meet tonight?" My heart raced, but before I could reply, Sarah glanced at me with a knowing look. "Who are you texting?" I hesitated, the question hanging in the air. "Just a friend," I said, hoping my voice didn't betray the turmoil within me. "Okay." She seemed satisfied, but I could see the flicker of suspicion in her eyes. As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that my double life was about to unravel. The phone buzzed again, and my heart sank as I read Sarah's next message. "Just wanted to make sure you're okay. Love you, Mom." The weight of her words crashed over me, and I realized I was standing on a precipice, ready to fall. What would happen when the truth finally came to light? Would I lose everything I held dear? Or would I find a way to mend the shattered pieces of my life? The thought lingered, and I knew that I was hurtling toward a reckoning I could no longer avoid. Dinner was supposed to be a celebration, a gathering of family to mark the next chapter in Sarah and Jake's lives. But as I sat at the dining table, my heart felt like a lead weight in my chest. The aroma of roasted chicken and garlic mashed potatoes wafted through the air, reminders of our family traditions. Yet I couldn't shake the unease that coiled in my stomach. I watched Sarah, radiant in her excitement, as she shared the news of her engagement plans. My daughter was beaming, oblivious to the turmoil that churned within me. "Mom, we're thinking of a spring wedding," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with joy. "I can't wait for you to help me plan everything. It's going to be perfect." I forced a smile, nodding along, but my mind was racing. All I could think about was Jake, the man who was supposed to be my future son-in-law, but had somehow woven himself into my life in ways I never anticipated. The way he looked at me, the way he made me feel alive, seemed to overshadow the love I had for my daughter. Guilt washed over me, but I couldn't help the thrill that coursed through my veins at the very thought of him. "Mom? Are you okay?" Sarah's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Of course, sweetheart." "Just a little tired," I said, my voice trembling slightly. I hoped my feigned nonchalance would suffice, but I could see the flicker of concern in her gaze. I quickly changed the subject. "Have you thought about colors or themes yet?" As the conversation shifted to wedding plans, I felt a familiar tension building. Jake, seated across from me, caught my eye. There was an intensity in his gaze, a silent conversation that only we understood. I could sense the weight of his own predicament, his commitment to Sarah juxtaposed with our secret. Later, after dinner, Jake pulled me aside into the living room while Sarah chatted with her father in the kitchen. The moment felt charged, electric, and I could feel my heart racing as he closed the door behind us. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and urgent. "I can't keep doing this, Nancy. We need to figure out what we're doing." "What do you mean?" My voice quivered, a mix of fear and anticipation. I knew what he was getting at, but I wasn't ready to confront it. "I care about you," he admitted, his eyes searching mine. "But I can't keep pretending with Sarah. It's not fair to her, and it's not fair to us. You need to choose. Do you want this, whatever this is? Or do you want your family?" The words hung in the air like a thick fog. I felt trapped, suffocated by the weight of his expectations and my own desires. "Jake, just think about it," he interrupted, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I can't just keep waiting in the shadows. I want you, Nancy, but I can't be the other man forever." Before I could respond, Sarah called for us, and we exchanged a fraught glance. I could feel the walls closing in, and I had to escape. if only for a moment. I stepped out onto the porch, the cool night air hitting me like a splash of cold water. I needed clarity, but my mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. As I stood there trying to catch my breath, I overheard Sarah's voice drifting from inside. "Jake, you're going to love this surprise I have planned for you. It's going to be so special." I froze, chills running down my spine. What surprise? The words echoed ominously in my mind, and I felt a sickening knot tighten in my stomach. I leaned against the railing, listening intently, the world around me blurring into a haze. The laughter inside felt like a distant echo, a reminder of the family I was betraying, the daughter who trusted me. There I was, torn between two lives, my heart at war with itself. The thrill of Jake's touch and the warmth of my daughter's love collided in a dizzying spiral. Was I really ready to make a choice? Did I even know what I wanted? The reality loomed over me, dark and suffocating. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my thoughts as dread pooled in my stomach. I had to figure this out before it was too late. The night of Sarah's surprise party arrived with an air of festivity that felt painfully ironic given the turmoil inside me. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my hair for what felt like the 100th time. The glimmer of the decorations around the house, the cheerful chatter of guests arriving, and the smell of cake baking filled the air. Yet my heart was heavy with dread. I was torn between the obligation I felt towards my daughter and the undeniable pull I had towards Jake. "Mom, are you ready?" Sarah's voice echoed from downstairs, bright and full of excitement. I forced a smile and nodded at my reflection, trying to shake off the anxiety that threatened to engulf me. "Yeah, I'll be down in a minute," I called back, but my feet felt glued to the floor. I took a deep breath, stepping into the living room where the sounds of laughter and music enveloped me. The sight of Sarah in her cute party dress, beaming with joy, made my heart ache more than I anticipated. "Surprise!" the guests shouted as Sarah walked in, and I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. They all looked so happy, unaware of the chaos brewing just beneath the surface. I clapped along with everyone else, forcing my smile wider, but my eyes searched for Jake. I knew he'd be here. As the party progressed, I chatted with friends and family, but my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom, a sense that everything was about to unravel. I moved through the crowd, pretending to enjoy myself, but my heart raced with every moment that passed without Jake's presence. "Mom, can you help me with the cake?" Sarah's voice cut through my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. I nodded, joining her in the kitchen where the sweet aroma of vanilla filled the air. "Of course, sweetheart." "Where's the frosting?" I asked, trying to focus on something other than my tangled emotions. "It's right here." She handed me a bowl, and as we worked together, I couldn't help but admire her enthusiasm. I wanted nothing more than to protect her innocence, but I felt like a traitor in my own skin. Just then, I caught sight of Jake entering through the back door, a charming smile plastered on his face. My heart skipped a beat, but I quickly averted my gaze, pretending to be engrossed in decorating the cake. Minutes later, I heard a hushed conversation coming from the adjacent room. Curiosity piqued, I gently excused myself from Sarah and tiptoed toward the sound. As I approached, I could hear Jake's voice, low and conspiratorial. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Sarah is so naive," he said, his tone laced with frustration. My heart plummeted as I pressed my ear against the wall, unable to move. "Maybe you should just tell her the truth," a voice replied. I recognized it as one of Jake's friends. "You can't keep stringing her along while you're with Nancy. It's not fair to her." A chill ran down my spine. How could he say that? My breath hitched in my throat as I strained to hear more. "I know, but it's complicated. I care about both of them in different ways," Jake confessed, his voice filled with anguish. I didn't mean for this to happen, but Nancy, she just understands me. She makes me feel alive. A wave of nausea washed over me. I felt exposed, like I was standing naked in front of them. Just then, the door swung open, and I stumbled back, nearly falling over. "Mom?" Sarah called out, her eyes narrowing as she approached. "What are you doing here?"